Wouldn't blame them. Can you scroll down on this document?
Do you want the mouse?
Yeah, okay.
Currently wrestling with the wires. Bear with, everyone.
Go on then, I'll take it. Where's the thing? Okay. All right, so the first link.
Do you want me to?
Oh, yeah, okay, go on then, if you can do that. Okay, so I thought I would just talk a little bit about Biden. We'll just talk a little bit about the American politics, because it's more interesting than our politics at the moment. Everyone knows what's going on with us. Labour's going to become the government, Tories are going to collapse, and it'll be much more of the same uni-party. Whereas in America, well, there's an actual change is on the cards. Maybe Trump will get back in, we'll see. But at the moment, it seems, in the last couple of days at least, in the news cycle, the thing to talk about is that Democrats are losing confidence in old Joe, Sleepy Joe. The quote, freak out is all over the place. It's from an unnamed source, but close in the White House. Is that all sorts of people, apparently, if you believe this unnamed source, lots and lots of people, maybe even the majority of them, at the top of the Democratic establishment, have sort of suddenly realised Joe Biden is not a great electoral giant. He's not a great vote winner. And his clear cognitive decline is sort of the least of it. It's just, again, the numbers. Just when polling comes out and it's that low, it's just, there seems like maybe there's panicking. But it's a bit too late because he is already the nominee. So...
Well, it's not technically too late.
What if there's some sort of... What if the law says you've actually got dementia now and you...
Well, they can still invoke the 25th Amendment.
Yeah.
Then Kamala could technically say, I'm not running. And then the Democratic Convention hasn't happened yet because...
Okay, that's true.
They've screwed up the convention rules, actually, because he was meant to have been announced a candidate for Ohio, but they changed the convention location, so he's technically not on the ballot paper in Ohio now, which is, like, the Democrat operatives are so stupid. So it's still possible they could sub in Michelle Obama and Newsom at the 11th hour.
Right.
Increasingly unlikely.
Yeah, it doesn't look likely, does it? I mean, because also the other thing you talk about Kamala there, Kamala, whatever that woman's name is. She's part of the problem. Part of the biggest problems are obviously his cognitive decline, or the fact he's actually suffering from some sort of dementia or something, whatever it is. But also, yeah, her massive unpopularity, just the economy stupid. And what are the other things?
Biden's record with his children, with his slow drip of news stories that show that he's not a man of high and unimpeachable character, considering how he treated Ashley and Hunter.
Yeah, the huge immigration problem on the southern border. The Afghanistan thing, I think a lot of Americans, or the numbers do show, a lot of Americans, even all sorts of Democrats, were completely humiliated by the Afghanistan thing, the way that was handled. There's other contenders in Democrats, like RFK Jr. It just doesn't help. RFK Jr. just doesn't help Biden, basically.
Well, the Israeli issue dividing the base between
and that,
like, the establishment Democrats, the intelligence services, and the boomer Dems, who are pro-Israel, versus the younger, more ethnically diverse, less invested in the post-Second World War and Cold War narrative Dems, who are all in for Palestine.
Well, I'm wondering, can either of you two answer this question? Can you think of a single thing that has been good optics for Joe Biden throughout his entire presidency? Because I'm struggling to come up with any. Because even right now, if you're talking about the divide on the Israel-Palestine issue within the Democratic voter base, Biden has been saying for a while that there are particular red lines that he won't let Israel cross. He won't give any more support. And then they've, did that bombing of Rafah the other day that he said before that was going to be the red line, and has taken no action on top of it.
I believe American servicemen have also been predictably fired upon on their beachhead humanitarian pier just off the coast.
Oh yeah, the technicality that means that they don't have to have boots on the ground.
Yes, like, as I said on Tim's show, it's like, in Pirates of the Caribbean 3 when they're all facing off on that stretch of beach, and because Davy Jones can't walk on dry land, he just stands in a bucket and he's technically okay. Yeah. That's what the American servicemen are currently doing in Gaza right now.
But has Joe Biden had a single positive news story to his name?
Well, the Democrats will. The blue anons will defend the indefensible, so that it almost doesn't matter. But in terms of the swing voters, I make you right in that I don't think there's any issue that can convince them unless they have Trump derangement syndrome.
And one of the biggest things is just the economy, Bidenomics, just a huge inflation, just making everyone poorer in real terms.
Well, Paul Krugman has a few graphs that say the economy is doing great. So
yeah, Janet the felon Yellen says there's nothing to worry about. Don't worry. Yellen says it's fine. Don't worry. So
inhabited by the ghost of the Donald for a minute there. Was that nickname?
The loser.
I like the fact that he draws out her body shape.
So it's just weird. Well, not weird, because the way we know the way the media works a bit is that they quite often sit on stories or sit on a particular take for a while until it's the right news cycle or until it's the right moment to release it. But in the last day or two, the news cycle has been that they're suddenly worried about it, as if they've suddenly realised that Biden isn't actually massively popular, and the polls don't look like he'll beat Trump in November, and now they're worried. Well, the time to worry was a few months back when whether he was, more like a year ago now, whether he was going to run again. They should have sorted it out then, whether they were going to go with Newsom or whoever, somebody else. Then was the time to really freak out and worry and make plays and do all. It's a bit late now, as you say, maybe not technically absolutely too late, but it is a bit. And the idea that, maybe we can just say he's got cognitive issues and it'll be Kamala. Well, she's more unpopular than him, if anything. The American electorate don't really like her.
Neither do the Democrat
broadly speaking. Yeah, right, yeah. They never wanted her, did they? They never wanted her.
Rumours behind the scenes is that they're trying to bribe her with a Supreme Court appointment in the future to stop her becoming president. No,
that's worse.
Is she a lawyer then?
She's Attorney General. Of
course she was. Of course she was. Yeah,
that's how she locks up all of those innocent men and kept them on death row.
Right, that's actually worse, though, because at least, and I say this is like two bad options. Do you want the chair or the noose?
Copium.
Right. If she were to become president, she could have, 8 years tops. If you're a Supreme Court judge, for life, you're untouchable.
It's forever, ever.
Yeah, and if anything, you're in a better position to influence policy in America than you are as the president, unless you just do what Obama did and sign endless executive orders.
Or Biden.
Or Biden.
Biden's got a record number.
So that's two awful options, and they shouldn't do that. Don't put Kamala Harris on the Supreme Court, for the love of God.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. You're absolutely right. In a way, a Supreme Court judge is more powerful than any president, in a sense. I mean, it's the Supreme Court that get to really interpret what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is, what it says. The president is merely a decider. I say merely. They're the head of the executive wing of the government, but nonetheless, at least 5 judges, Supreme Court judges, obviously they can get anything passed if 5 agree on something. They're more powerful than a president.
And it was the Warren Supreme Court in the 1950s that completely upended basically the entire way that southern states in America operated.
Well, after the ruling for gay marriage, one of the most absurd bits of legislation, I think it was Justice Anthony Kennedy, wrote into law the reason that we can redefine the definition of marriage is because the Constitution gives to people the right to redefine their something like their hopes, their dreams, their definition of truth and the universe. It's like fantastic romantic poetry there. You complete blowhard that has absolutely nothing to do with the Constitution, but that gets cemented into law.
Yeah, no, the Supreme Court is a fantastically powerful thing. I mean, back in the 19th century, they rule that slavery is legal. Decades later, rule that it's definitely illegal. They rule that segregation is fine, and then decades later they rule it's not fine. And then they've got the power in all sorts of ways rests with them. Again, they get to interpret really what the Constitution means and the Bill of Rights.
And just to put a full stop on that point is that in the 70s, Roe v. Wade, fine, and then the other year, Roe v. Wade, not fine. And in the judgments that were given by the Supreme Court judges, you basically had
Clarence
Thomas and some of the other conservative judges saying, this whole argument they put forward was nonsense to begin with. There's no secret interpretive right to privacy in the 14th Amendment, which is basically saying the quiet part out loud, which is the Supreme Courts can magic up rights out of thin air if they feel like it.
The Supreme Court is not bound by precedent. That's the key thing. We don't care what we said before. Pardon me. We don't care what we said before. We think this now. And of course, it only takes 5 of them to agree to push something through. So those 5 people are more powerful than any given president, in a sense. But anyway, I wasn't really talking too much about the Supreme Court. Let's just hope Kamala doesn't end up on the court. Let's just hope that. So the Independent there saying that Democrats are freaking out. The next one, Vox, even admits it. It's funny that it's even lefty type things are sort of the theory why Biden's struggling with young. Sorry, go back. Or why Biden's struggling with young and non-white voters. Just a general collapse in his popularity, really, is what that is. They're sort of prepared to admit it, and that the Democrat faithful are worried about it. If you go to the next one. Pardon me, should have bought a glass of water. Politico, again, going with that same thing that people behind the scenes are freaking out. Because, you know, even people like maybe Bill Maher or... I don't know, Bill Maher's not too bad, is he? But,
no, he is. He absolutely is.
Okay, all right, I take that back.
Yeah.
What I mean is he's not sort of... at least he'll go on something like Loose Women, and not Loose Women, what do they call it? The View. He'll go on The View and push back against them. There are worse people than Bill Maher, but yeah, lots of his takes are absolutely mental and insane. But even someone like Bill Maher, I did mention him as an example of a lefty, but he'll openly say, look, Biden's, it's a joke. Like, you know, come on, you can't deny it anymore.
Even further
it's a joke.
Than someone like Bill Maher, Jon Stewart did.
All right, someone like Jon Stewart, right. Yeah. We'll say, look, come on.
And Jon Stewart's far worse. Well, I mean, they're both about as bad as each other, but Bill Maher is less obvious with it, I'd say.
So in the Politico article, we're told that these insiders, the unnamed source, it says that anxiety has morphed into palpable trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. And the gap between what Democrats will say on TV and in print and what they'll text their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Biden's prospects. Again, the polls just look bad. Nearly 24 reasons why Biden could lose, ranging from immigration and high inflation to the president's age, the unpopularity of the vice president, and the presence of third-party candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You know, just to name but a few issues with Sleepy Joe. Another quote here from a Democrat. I think it was a congressman. Is it Dan Kildee? I think he was a congressman, definitely a Democrat. He said, we have to run a campaign where honestly, we drive home the message that Donald Trump takes us back to the 19th century. Biden takes us further into the 21st century. So it seems like the Democrat establishment are going for the angle of much the same as they did the first time. Just orange man bad. Just revel in your Trump derangement syndrome, regardless of how divorced it is from reality. Just go from, it'll take us back. He wants to be an emperor, he wants to be king, whatever nonsense you want, whatever words you want to say. We're just going to go with that. He's going to destroy the country, destroy democracy as we know it.
I wish he was everything they said he was.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, I don't have contempt for the groups that they're talking about, nor do I have an issue with President Trump because he's hilarious, but this is getting increasingly absurd when he's hosting the log cabin Republicans, draking himself in the LGBT flag, is friends with Caitlyn Jenner, and has given historic amounts of money to black colleges. I mean, again, that's not something that I think, that's not something that I think makes him and his campaign positive or legitimate. That's not the grounds on which I would support him, but it just completely dismantles all of their smears.
Oh, right, yeah.
Also, you said all this the first time round,
right, yeah.
And none of that happened.
Yeah.
So, like, fool me once, not that I was fooled at the time, but fool me again, then that's not going to happen.
You sound almost exactly like George W. Bush.
Yeah.
You said that.
Yeah. I'm going to say that was completely intentional. But if people are going to fall for this again, then they absolutely deserve whatever ruination Biden is going to bring into the country.
Fool me once. We won't get fooled again. Yeah. No, it's stupid. Yeah, it really is stupid that the angle that they're trying to attack him is just exactly the same as last time, and he revealed himself to work perfectly within the rules to a fault. Even he didn't go hard enough to try and drain the swamp, did he? The first time,
he didn't drain the swamp.
All right.
He didn't call in the National Guard against the 2020 riots, for example.
Right. Biden did call in the National Guard before his inauguration even, didn't he? Remember that? They lined the streets of DC whilst Trump was still actually the president. Anyway, so there was a clip in the last day or so, because Trump's going through one of his many trials, isn't he? one of the many trumped up, pun intended, trials.
This is the Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen lawsuit.
But there's a whole slew of them coming, aren't there? There'll be at least another one, if not two, before the election. And old Bobby De Niro turned up on cue, obviously a paid shield. Can we play this clip? It's only like a minute.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Where's the mouse? There's the mouse.
We New Yorkers used to tolerate him when he was just another grubby real estate hustler masquerading as a big shot. A two-bit playboy lying his way into the tabloids. But around the country, people who didn't know him, as we did, started to support him. They bought into his bullshit. That's why I needed to be involved and wanted to be involved in the new Biden-Harris ad. Because it shows the violence of Trump and reminds us that he'll use violence against anyone who stands in the way of his megalomania and greed. But it's a coward's violence. You think Trump ever threw a punch himself or took one? This guy who ran and hid in the White House bunker when there were protesters outside? No way. He doesn't get blood on his hands. No, he doesn't. He directs the mob to do his dirty work for him. When Trump ran in 2016, it was like a joke. This buffoon running for president. No, never could happen. We'd forgotten the lessons of history that showed us other clowns who weren't taken seriously until they became vicious dictators.
Like Zelensky.
Trump, we have a second chance. And no one is laughing now. This is the time to stop him by voting him out once and for all. We don't want to wake up after the election saying, what, again? My God, what the hell have we done? We can't have that happen again.
So for a start, De Niro's 80 years old. It's time just to stay at home now, Bobby.
He does know that he's not an actual gangster.
All right, yeah, he's talking about... yeah, you're not...
I know you're old now, Robert, and maybe you're getting things mixed up, but you weren't actually an Italian gangster at any point.
Well, he was a famous actor who seems now incapable of just learning lines before a press conference.
Reading off the script he's been given.
Also,
pathetic.
It's completely disingenuous and disgusting to say that Trump hid in a bunker from protesters, because those so-called protesters had already killed people and firebombed the church that he then went and stood outside holding up a Bible on 5/29. He was literally evacuated for security reasons because they were worried that they were going to try and breach the White House barricade. So,
whilst Biden really did hide in a basement for most of the last...
For the entire campaign.
Yeah, De Niro talking about throwing a punch or taking a punch. Yeah, Robert, you're not Jake LaMotta. You're not actually Jake LaMotta, right?
Bull, yeah.
Like, you're not hard in any way. You're an 80-year-old washed-up douchebag. It's but it's funny, though, because the backlash from this, at the time, there were people sort of outside the court just like heckling him and stuff. And I think some of the Trump kids, because Trump's got more than one son, hasn't he? Maybe it was actually Donald Jr., I don't know, but they did a counter press conference or something saying, don't listen to Robert De Niro. Like, who listens to celebrities and film stars anymore? I mean, even 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was a real thing, right? If an A-lister endorsed a politician, a lot of people would... There's some weight to that, right? But not anymore.
I think we know by now that people who play pretend for a living and get a ridiculous amount of money for, again, being outsized theatre kids. No offense, Connor.
Fair. Why do you think I'm not in theatre anymore? They all suck.
They aren't always experts when it comes to political discourse or analysis.
Did you see The Rock? They were asked, you said you might run for president in the future, but in 2020 you endorsed Joe Biden. Do you feel like doing that again? He said, well, I felt it was something that I was compelled to do at the time. Will I be doing that again? No. No, I won't. Because even he realises there's a massive egg on his face.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, De Niro always had, from day one, a pretty acute case of Trump derangement syndrome, didn't he? He always was. Video. He always was anti-Trump. I think because he's a New York guy, and a lot of New Yorkers, left-leaning New Yorkers, have had an animus against Trump since the 80s or earlier. Right, yeah. Trump's been an annoying rich kid to them for decades and decades and decades, long before he was seriously involved in
he wasn't a real tough guy like us theatre kids.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll get you. That's going to be clipped out of context.
If we play this clip, it's just a little bit more of the same thing, but even more absurd.
Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth.
Nonsense.
I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you.
Poorly
If
delivered.
Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that.
Yes.
He will never leave. What does that mean?
Dramatic slow
Is that
zoom.
the country we want to live in? Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm dictator for life? And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedom...
Yeah.
That's enough there.
There wasn't another clip of a guy confronting him, shouting, "You're a mook!
Yeah.
You're a mook! M-O-O-K!"
This guy's gonna whack our elections.
What's a mook? I don't know, but De Niro's a mook.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
There was a guy that walked up and said that the Capitol police officer lied under oath as well, and he completely stumped. He's like, "They lied under oath?" He was like, "They didn't put this in my script. I wasn't prepared for this."
I've not had my dementia meds this morning. Neither have I.
Yeah, De Niro's just a mutt, just a washed up mutt. That's all he is. So I can't believe anyone would it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for him. And it's good that he got pushed back sort of in real time outside. And he's so clearly sort of reading a script as well that it's been written for him. I can only imagine. I doubt he wrote those words himself. It's like, he will never leave. Why are you... What a palpable lie. What nonsense.
He did last time.
Yeah, like he did last time. Yeah. It's like, we remember more than 4 years ago, Bobby. Like, are you all right? What's 80? It's 80. Right. Anyway, so looking at the actual polling, because all of this smacks a bit, doesn't it, of desperation, to be perfectly honest. I didn't realise how much time I'd used up there. So just quickly to show the numbers, just click through a few of these links, just showing that it's like disapproval rate of 60%. That's really, really high. Anything over 50, anything between 40 and 50 is pretty high, pretty bad. 59, that's real bad. On that one, 39%, so it's just lower than... That's not approval or disapproval. That's just what people are likely to vote for and stuff. Just Trump just keeps pulling ahead in the polls. Just the more they sort of seem to fairly nakedly attack him through law for political reasons, the more people like Trump, or are prepared at least to vote for him or abandon Biden.
The most likely path to a Biden victory has been speculated at the moment, and this is not falling afoul of YouTube's guidelines, is that there have been large voter registration efforts in swing states recently. I know it's Texas and Missouri, I believe, are two prominent ones. And the Texas, I think it was the AG, they said, we're not sure where all of these are coming from because we haven't cleaned up our voter rolls, and lots of dead people have been taken off the rolls, obviously, so that they can't vote. But there's about 200,000 people that are added in April, and people are speculating, are these America's brand new neighbors who have wandered across the southern border being given a social security number and then are able to vote in a federal election? Because there was a recent ruling that allowed them to, that said it was against the Civil Rights Act if they couldn't vote in federal elections, at least. So there could be many new arrivals who obviously are being promised amnesty by the Biden administration thinking, I'll vote Biden.
It's bad. It's real bad. It's horrible what they're trying to do. And the argument that it's Trump that's trying to destroy democracy, or that he's ruining politics or the way politics is done. It's that classic thing of you accuse your enemy of the thing you're doing. I mean, we know this now. This isn't new. This isn't a hot take from me. But this just seems like the biggest, most egregious example of that, where they're actively sort of destroying, by using the law and the Justice Department to go after Trump, to ruin him in all sorts of ways, and then accusing him of trying to, of weaponizing the political system or the justice system. It's just really bad. And one last thing to say about the polling is there's a difference between your approval rating and disapproval rating, if that makes sense. So Biden's disapproval rating was like down in the higher 30s, which is really, really low. That is really, really low. I mean, even I think George Bush Jr., I don't think went that low with the whole Iraq war stuff. So So yeah, most people, it seems, or definitely most people, the majority of people in America aren't happy with Sleepy Joe. So once again, let's just say, fingers crossed for the Donald. You mentioned you had a couple of criticisms of him there earlier. Yeah, I'm not. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't think he's like this God Emperor, this answer to all the problems, but 1,000 times him over Biden.
Absolutely. And
1,000 times. And good. And if he does try to drain the swamp a bit harder this time, I've got everything crossed for him. Yeah, I don't love him. He is in his own way a bit of an embarrassment, right? But I mean, he's not a polished statesman, shall we say? But of course, yeah, he's very, very entertaining. It's genuinely funny. And last time he didn't embroil them in loads of foreign wars. Brilliant. That's brilliant. And if he can drain the swamp, if he can do even 2 or 3 of the list of 10 things he said on Tucker a few months back, saying, yeah, draining the swamp in all sorts of ways. If he can do even some of that, that's going to be brilliant. So I'm rooting for him.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see what else we're up to, you can go on down to our website where you can see things like My Harry and Proper Horror Show's discussion about Stanley Kubrick's work. And if you want to see what we're doing more generally, everything gets posted on our Twitter account. Thank you very much for watching.